All right, so today we're going to be talking about organic, biodynamic, and sustainable wines. And hopefully by the end of this video, you have a better understanding of what each of those different ways of farming and winemaking is, and a better understanding of what we do.
Organic wine is a government designation of a type of farming style that limits what kind of additives you can have in your wine and in the vineyards. So you're not allowed to use any synthetic fertilizers, synthetic pesticides.
In winemaking practices for organics, you're not able to add more than a minimum amount of sulfites and other additives, but you are able to use cultivated yeast. Natural yeasts are always preferred in organic practices, but cultivated yeasts are allowed in those practices, which would differentiate from biodynamic wines. So in biodynamic practices, you're thinking of the entire ecosystem as one. So that's the difference between organics and biodynamics. It's taking it a little bit further. So what you're doing in biodynamic wines is trying to have all of the things that you need really close to home, which is why they incorporate cattle on their property and other types of farm animals. And they're making all of their compost in-house on property at the same site. So you're still using any natural products, which are also more limited than organics, but it's an entire ecosystem that they're farming under. And when you're making biodynamic wines, you need to make everything naturally.
For sustainably farming vineyards, it's actually not a designated by the government on what you can or can't do, unlike organic. Biodynamic and sustainable are both private certifications. There's multiple certifications for sustainability, and then the Demeter certification for biodynamic wines and biodynamic vineyards. So for sustainable, we're not looking necessarily as much on using just natural materials in the vineyards and in the winery. We're also looking at long-term sustainability. So we're looking at being a viable vineyard for generations and generations and generations, and a viable winery for generations and generations and generations. So we're also not only looking at chemicals, but we're also looking at using less water, using less materials, less fuel. We're using recycling more, looking at our waste streams, looking at supply chains, and making sure that everything in those in the whole process of creating a bottle of wine is more sustainable. We're reaching out to the community. We're involved in community engagement. All of these things help us become long-term a sustainable operation.
Sustainable wines are going forward and being not only environmentally sustainable and responsible, we're being economically responsible and responsible for our community around us, including our employees and our neighboring properties, vineyards, houses. We're really trying to take a step forward and be engaged with everyone around us, including the future of our business.
USDA certified and just organic wines. USDA is a certification that's provided by the government. So it's actually a government agent comes out and inspects your facilities and inspects everything so you can get that seal on your bottle. And what that does is it basically says that you have passed all of their requirements to be an organic vineyard and or an organic winery. You're allowed to use a lower level of sulfites, which essentially means that your shelf life and the cellarability of your wines, the ageability of your wines is going to be much, much lower. So you're not going to be able to hold on to those bottles for quite as long.
So organics do limit the amount of sulfites in wine, but you have to remember that sulfites are naturally occurring. There's always going to be minimal amounts of sulfites in every wine, but organics are limiting the amount of sulfites that they're adding to their wines.
The style of farming, whether it's organic or biodynamic or sustainable, certified sustainable, matters to your end product, which is the bottle of wine, because you're being more responsible about how you're treating the environment, how you're treating society, and what you're putting into your body. So we're limiting which chemicals we're using. We're not using dangerous chemicals. We're not using anything that we wouldn't want to be around and that we wouldn't want to put into our own bodies. It's all when you're sustainable, you're trying to look towards the long term. I think it's really important to keep in mind when you're looking for a bottle of wine to be responsible about what style of farming and what kinds of vineyards it comes from.
Right, and to add on to that, when you're farming responsibly, you're not only taking care of your consumers and the end product, but you're taking care of all of your employees, everyone around you. And that's something super important to all of the organic as well as biodynamic and sustainable wines that we've been introduced to. To sum up, organic wines are made by utilizing only natural products in your vineyard and in the winery. Biodynamic wines are incorporating the ecosystem as a whole on top of using only natural products. And sustainable wines are looking at our vineyard and our community and trying to sustain that through the future for years and years to come.